Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week there's been a lot of news about the upcoming Apple event, some iPhone 13 last-minute details, as well as Mac releases and more. This is your news update for the week of September 5th, 2021. And the first thing has to do with Germany urging the European Union to require 7 years of updates and repairs for iOS devices. And apparently this is also for Android devices as well. But Apple is pretty much already doing this. With the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, these still receive updates, and even older devices receive updates on previous versions of iOS. So they're securing those with different security updates, but I think the concern here is parts availability, maybe different batteries and things, and the repair of the phone altogether. So Apple doesn't necessarily repair all of the phones in the stores. Sometimes they'll send them out, sometimes they'll just give you a new one, and other times they'll urge you to get a new phone. If the phone is repairable, hopefully this will make it available for us to have parts to finally repair the phones. If it passes in the European Union, maybe that will trickle over to the United States where we have the Rights to Repair Act. So hopefully we'll see more of this in the future where we'll have actual parts that we can pick up, such as the camera and much more. Hopefully we'll see something like that in the years to come, but it's hard to say, but this could be the first step in that direction. Now, Apple next year is going to allow app developers to finally be able to manage customers and have people sign up outside of the app on the App Store. You can see in this recent news post, Japan Fair Trade Commission closes App Store investigation. Apple will let developers of Reader apps around the world link to an external website to set up or manage an account beginning early next year. So this is a win for some types of apps. I think Apple wants to keep it safe, but also this helps those that might want to manage their customer base a little bit differently and not share profit with Apple with signups and things, maybe be able to do that as well. Apple's come under a lot of scrutiny for its App Store policies lately, and this is a move, I think, in the right direction that should help out app developers quite a bit, but also keep it secure and safe. Now, there's been a lot of scrutiny of iPhone CSAM photo scanning, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation has asked Apple to basically get rid of this altogether. They want to urge Apple to get rid of this, as over 90 organizations around the world have also urged Apple to rethink this or abandon it altogether. So it looks like Apple delaying this was the first step, and maybe in the future they'll actually just get rid of it altogether. And there's an article about it. If you want to check it out, I'll link it in the description. But they're saying it's just too risky with the future repercussions that could come from this, that they want Apple to sort of get rid of it altogether. I think a lot of people would be very happy if Apple did that. Now, we're expecting Apple invites to their iPhone 13 event as soon as tomorrow. The invites are expected to go out, and then you'll be able to watch the event live, and you can see it in the TV app or on YouTube or on their website as well. And that event is said to take place the following week. So typically Apple will send out an invite as soon as the 7th, and then the event is said to be on the 14th. It could be the 13th with iPhone 13, but most likely it will be the 14th. So we'll see that Apple event, and then we'll see the announcement of the iPhone 13, Apple Watch Series 7, as some are saying. We'll talk about that in a moment, and maybe some other things as well. Hopefully we'll have a few surprises there. And at that event, the main feature is said to be the iPhone 13. And recently leaked photos of iPhone 13 cases, iPhone 13 Pro Max, on Twitter from Majin Buu. He posted a video of the cases ready to ship, and they are indeed saying iPhone 13 on them. So it appears to be the name. They didn't skip iOS 13, and it looks like they're not going to skip iPhone 13 as well. So no iPhone 12s, even though it's kind of a minor update as far as the design or anything with that as far as changes, but there will be some updates to it as well. And so we've seen that, and one of the major updates is said to be Apple ProRes RAW video. So we have ProRes photos, or Apple RAW photos. Now we'll have ProRes video, maybe along with portrait video and much more, but these are said to be coming to iPhone 13. So I can't wait to see what they have as far as that goes. And also, the iPhone 13 is said to gain the A15 CPU. Like they do every year, they bring it up a notch. And according to Fronttron on Twitter, he said that benchmarks of the A15 CPU shown on a Chinese website show that it's about 10 to 15% faster with its GPU performance. So it's outperforming the iPhone 12 as we would expect, but also it seems to sort of throttle a little bit after the initial test as the CPU gets hot. That's pretty normal, but it's still faster even when it's throttled than the iPhone 12 is altogether. So it looks like this is going to be a really nice processor. What else it can do is hard to say. We'll have to wait and see what Apple says, but I can't wait to see what they have. Now, last week I reported that the iPhone 13 could have satellite communication, and this is said to be used for emergency communication for maybe text messaging or phone calls when you don't have access to cellular radios. So without millimeter wave or 5G or 4G coverage or any coverage whatsoever, you would be able to send emergency messages and make emergency phone calls if you were maybe in an area you couldn't get signal. Now, this is said to not be coming to iPhone 13, according to some, such as Mark Gurman. He believes it's still being worked on, but won't necessarily ship with the iPhone 13. It may be coming later in future versions, maybe iPhone 14. So we'll have to wait and see. That would be a great feature, and I would love to see it in this year's versions, but he believes the rumors of the satellite communication refer more to the widening of the 5G bands that can be accepted by the iPhone 13. So again, we'll have to wait and see what Apple actually announces, but I really like that we're not exactly sure. So this event may have a few surprises in it. Now, also the iPhone 13 is said to come in matte black. So we'll have a matte black option. I talked about this before. Apple has done this with the iPhone 5, and then they did a jet black option and a matte black option with the iPhone 7. So we could see that with iPhone 13. I really liked the matte black iPhone 7 Plus that I used full time for a year, and hopefully we see something like this on the iPhone 13. It's also said to be coming in bronze, replacing the Pacific blue color. Last year we had the green color, then we went to blue with the iPhone 12, and so maybe we'll be going to bronze instead of blue. So every year lately, Apple's been changing it up, and it looks like that's going to be happening this year. Also, we could see a slight price increase due to the chipset costs. TSMC, who makes the processors inside the iPhone, is fairly expensive, as it does take a lot to make those processors, but the price has been going up. Apple may pass that on to the customer this year. We don't know that for sure until they announce it, but it could be slightly more, or they could keep it the same. We never really know until Apple announces it, as sometimes they make decisions last minute. Hopefully they keep it the same, but there could be some sort of price increase. Now, also recent news is saying that next year's iPhone, the iPhone 14, will use a periscope zoom camera. We've heard this for quite some time. They're sourcing parts and apparently trying to avoid Samsung, as Samsung does have a periscope zoom camera in their S21 Ultra. Supposedly they're going around that and trying to source other components and maybe do it a little bit differently, as Apple tends to do. So we'll have to wait and see until next year, but we could have a periscope zoom in those future cameras. Now, as far as upcoming iOS betas or iOS 15, a lot of people have been asking me, when will we see beta 9? And at this point, I'm not convinced we will have a beta 9. We should know that as soon as tomorrow or Wednesday. But every year, or at least last year, with iOS 14, Apple released iOS 14 Beta 7, and then they waited a week. During the week they announced the iPhone event, they waited, and then the week that they had the event, right after the event, they had the release candidate. So we may skip a week here. Apple has done that in the past, where they skip a week and then wait for the release candidate. It's possible we could have a beta 9, but it's unlikely based off previous years. So we could have this week with nothing, with a release candidate next Tuesday, and a final release maybe as soon as Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. We did that last year. We had a release pretty quickly after the release candidate, and we could see the same thing there with an iPadOS 15 release, watchOS 8 release, and maybe Mac coming a little bit later, but that's what I would look for. As far as iOS 14.8, some people have said that this will be coming and sort of bring something a little bit different, where Apple would just allow you to install security updates and not update to iOS 15 altogether. So far, we have not seen iOS 14.8 at all. 14.8 existed in Xcode only, and Apple did hint that they would allow security updates only in the future, but that could be with iOS 15. We don't know that for sure, and Apple has in the past sort of abandoned different versions. Hopefully we'll see a 14.8 as soon as this week if they do plan to sort of release that version, but right now they haven't released it. Last year they released the last version of iOS 13 in mid to late August, and then they never had an update after that. So we might see this. this week or not at all or ever with 14.8. But again, there's been no news whatsoever on that. Now, as far as the upcoming Apple Watch Series 7, we know quite a bit about at this point, where it's going to have a more squared off edge, it's going to get a redesign, and possibly even use bands that don't fit this current design. So maybe they'll have different bands than we have here. Hopefully we won't, because a lot of us have bands at this point if we've been using an Apple Watch all along. But some of the Apple Watch bands have gone out of stock, but maybe that's just because they're getting new models ready. However, the upcoming Series 7 Apple Watch is said to have a better system on a chip in it, as we would expect, improved battery life, a larger display, but not really any different sensors. So this year, a lot of people were saying that there would be different sensors, such as a blood pressure monitor, and Mark Gurman is saying there will definitely not be a blood pressure monitor in this update. Maybe we'll see something else. Some people have said temperature monitors, glucose monitors, but it looks like this year is going to be more about a redesign, with next year maybe having some additional sensors. Hopefully we'll have more functionality this year, but there's been no additional news about that. So with its larger display, though, we do expect some new watch faces. So we'll have watch faces that we've had already, and then some new ones to take advantage of a slightly larger display on the new device. And that's really all we're expecting from a Series 7 Apple Watch. A slight redesign, some new watch faces with watchOS 8 that take advantage of that display, and that's about it. Hopefully Apple has some surprises, though. Now, there's been some additional news about Apple AR or VR glasses. So Apple is said to eventually release glasses and also a virtual reality headset. And recent news from a publication called The Information says that the system on a chip is already done for that headset, as well as the physical design, and they're just finishing up the displays that will go in front of your eyes. But they are also sort of reiterating what we've heard before, that it will need to tether to an iPhone, maybe for additional processing, or maybe to a Mac or an iPad where it could process some additional functionality using that M1 chipset or Apple's A15 processor, something along those lines. So it looks like it's ready to go, but we may not see the first one until 2023. Although some do believe it could be a little bit earlier. We're just waiting to see that altogether, but we just don't know at this point. Now, when it comes to future Macs, it looks like Apple is looking for a new processor performance programmer. So you can see here's the job posting here. It was available on the 2nd. It was found by Tom's Hardware, and it looks like they're looking for a new performance programmer. Now, this could be just to get different functionality, explore new possibilities, but currently Apple's silicon is based on ARM programming or ARM processors. And the ARM processors come with a license fee. And so maybe they're looking at this to get around that licensing fee, or maybe they're just looking for some alternative or better performance or a different way of making chips altogether to sort of outperform what they have already. It's hard to say what they're going to do with this, but it's great to see that they're continually sort of trying to find different ways to make things better. Now, when it comes to that upcoming Mac or MacBooks, the 14 and 16-inch M1X MacBook Pros are believed to be launching in October or November. This is according to Digitimes and lines up with what Mark Gurman and others such as John Prosser have said, that it will be coming later in the year. We thought earlier on it would be announced at WWDC, but due to a lack of mini LED displays and maybe some other production delays, it apparently was pushed back later, although maybe they always intended it to be this late. Either way, we should see a 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro in a couple months. I'm really looking forward to a new Mac with additional ports other than Thunderbolt, where we could have an SD card slot and more. So I can't wait for that and to see what they can perform like, because this M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch is incredible at editing 4K videos. It doesn't really slow down. So to see what they could do with additional power, that's something I'm looking forward to most. Now, some are saying that we could see an iPad mini at the upcoming Apple event. I'm not so sure about that, but we do think that there's going to be a new iPad mini that has this sort of design of the iPad Pro and iPad Air, but will retain Touch ID instead. So just sort of matching all of the squared off aesthetic that Apple has had lately with the iPhone and more. So that seems to make a lot of sense that we'll see that very soon. Whether or not it will be at this event, there has been information saying there will be multiple events. Maybe they'll keep that for a later event, but either way, we should see some sort of update to that. And then finally, when it comes to the Apple car, it looks like Apple is still working on one. They've recently hired 2 former Mercedes engineers to join a special project. So we could see an Apple car, hopefully in a few years, but they take a long time to develop. the supply chain and everything else, or they could just be working on software for self-driving cars for someone else. But they have been said to been sourcing parts from different manufacturers around the world. So hiring more engineers from a former automotive company, it makes sense that they're looking at something automotive, but what specifically we'll have to wait and see. And so that's everything for this past week. Of course, I can't wait for that new Apple event and to see what iPhone 13 is all about and maybe some surprises they have and more. Let me know what you're most excited for in the comments below. And if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.